Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our online session for the paper ENM 6111, The Structure of Modern English. In the previous lectures, we have completed Block 2 Morphology, where we studied how words are formed and how meaning is built inside words. So today we begin a new and a very important block, which is block 3, syntax. Syntax is the study of words. Syntax focuses on how words come together to form meaningful and grammatical sentences. So this block is extremely important because every time we speak, write, or read English, we use syntax. Uh, even if we know many words, communication will fail if we do not know, if we do not arrange them properly. Syntax explains, why some sentences sound correct and natural, while others others sound wrong, even though they use the same words. So in today's lecture, we will start with the basic idea of or basic concept of syntax and slowly move towards understanding sentence structure, phrases, and grammatical categories. So I will explain everything step by step using very simple examples. So now let's move on to the lecture's contents. Today, these are the contents. These are the things we shall be covering today. First, recap into this focus and the learning goals, followed by discussions of Unit 11 to Unit 15, and then assignment, then conclusion and next steps. So before that, let's move on to the recap of previous lecture, what we have completed in the previous lecture. So it is very important before we start syntax. So it's good to revise what we have already completed. It's very important to revise what we have already completed in the previous lectures. So in the previous lectures, we have completed block 2, as I have already said, block 2 morphology. In that block, we have discussed how words are built from smaller meaningful units called morphemes. So we learn about the structure of words and types of morphemes, alloforms, and the difference between inflection and derivation. We also discussed word formation processes like derivation, compounding, conversion, clipping, blending, acronym, and borrowing. And all this knowledge is very important because syntax does not work alone. Syntax works together with morphology. It interacts with morphology. So words that we studied in morphology now come together to form sentences in syntax. So today we move to block 3, syntax. In this block, we will study, as you can see here, from units 1 to 15. This unit focuses on sentence structure, phrases, and grammatical categories. So in today's lecture, we will mainly focus on understanding what syntax is, what it studies, and what areas are covered in this block. We will also introduce the main units of syntax that we will study in the coming lectures. So today, today's focus is like building building a strong foundation. If you understand today's lecture well, and the later topics in syntax will become much easier for you. All right. So next, let's focus on today's learning goals of today's lecture. So Now, look at the learning goals for today's Block-3 syntax. Learning goals, explain you what you're expected to understand and achieve after studying this block, right? So the first goal is to help understand basic syntax concepts. This means uh, uh, understanding how sentences are structured in English. And the second goal is to help you identify constituents and phrases. Constituents are groups of words that work together as a unit in a sentence. So the third goal is to help you distinguish, different phrase types actually, such as noun phrases, verb phrases, adjective phrases, and adverb phrases, and prepositional phrases. So another important goal is to help you explain the role of functional categories such as determiners, tense markers, and complementizers. These, learning goals are, important not only for, exams, but also for understanding how English grammar actually, you know, works. Syntax help you, analyze sentences instead of just memorizing rules. So if you keep these goals in mind while studying, you will find the syntax logical and systematic, not confusing. Okay. Uh, so uh, now, not only that, when you understand this syntax, basic syntax, as you can see in the, uh, in the expected outcomes, see this, when you understand this Block-3 properly, it will also, prepare you for the Block-4, that is about the generative grammar, right? So now, let's focus on, on this expected outcomes. So first is, you should be, once you after the lecture, once you see the sentence, you will be able to analyze sentences structurally. This means you should be able to break a sentence into, meaningful parts, right? And you should also be able to break sentences into phrases such as noun phrases, verb phrases, and explain their roles. Another, important expected outcome is that you should be able to, use syntactic terminology correctly, like words like constituent, phrase, head, and, functional category should also become, familiar to you. So finally, this block, as I already said, prepares you for Block-4, phrase structure, and generative grammar. If you understand syntax well, generative grammar will, will not feel difficult at all. Okay. So this learning outcome is very important. So now let's move on to the next slide. So let's begin with this definition of syntax. So now let's understand the most basic questions. That is, what is syntax? Syntax is the branch of, linguistics that studies sentence structure. It explains how words combine to form sentences. Syntax helps you understand three important questions. How do words combine? Why are some sentences grammatical? Why are some sentences ungrammatical? So, for example, look at these two sentences. The boy is reading a book. Boy, the book reading. Yes. So both the sentences are, using the same words, but only the first sentence is correct. Why? Because it follows the syntactic rules of English. So syntax studies these rules. It does not focus on meanings of words, but on order and structure. So syntax shows that English sentences follow a fixed pattern. If we break that pattern, the sentence become incorrect. So understanding, syntax helps you write correct sentences, speak clearly, and analyze grammar logically. Okay. So next is scope of syntax. So this let's explain the scope of syntax. So what exactly is it? Scope means here what areas this block actually covers. So this block focuses on the internal structure of sentences. It studies how words are grouped together into phrases, right? So syntax also studies the relationship between form and function. This means how grammatical form helps express meaning. Syntax does not study vocabulary, it studies grammar and structure. It explains how meaning is organized grammatically. So in this block, we will learn that sentences are not flat or random. They have a hierarchical, structure. Words from form phrases and phrases form sentences like that. So by studying syntax, you will learn to see sentences in a way. You will understand why grammar rules exist and how they work together. This understanding is very useful for higher studies, teaching English and writing accurately. Okay, so next is the constituent structure. The constituent structure. So, Unit 11 constituent structure introduces an important concept in syntax called constituent structure. So to understand syntax properly, we must understand what a constituent is. A constituent is a group of words that functions as a single unit in a sentence. In other words, some words in a sentence stick together and work together. Syntax studies these groups, not just individual words. So an important point to remember is that sentences are hierarchical, not just flat. This means a sentence is not just a straight line or words. So instead, words are words form groups, and those groups form bigger groups. So let us look at examples. Sentence example: the small child kicked the ball. In this sentence, the small child is one group. It works together as a noun phrase. So similarly, kick the ball is another group. So this group, this works as a verb phrase or verbal phrase. So inside the verb phrase, the ball is again a smaller noun phrase. So we can say noun phrase, that small child, noun phrase, kick the ball, noun verb phrase. So noun phrase inside verb phrase is the ball. All right. So understanding constituent structure helps us see how sentences are built step by step, systematically. So this, idea is central to syntax, and we will use again and again in later units. All right. There are, as you can see here, sentences are hierarchical, right? So let us now understand the concept of hierarchy more clearly. In syntax, hierarchy means what? Some parts of a sentence are inside, are inside other parts. Let me repeat it again. In syntax, hierarchy means that some parts of a sentence are inside other parts, right? So think of a sentence like a tree or just a straight line. Some branches join to form bigger branches, right? So similarly, words join to form phrases. and phrases join to form sentences. So, for example, in the sentence, the small child kicked the ball. Again, look at the same example. The word child is inside the phrase the small child, right? That phrase is part of the whole sentence. So this hierarchical structure explains why some word groups behaves as units. When we move words or replace words, we usually move or replace the whole group, not individual words. So syntax focuses on these hidden structure, even though we do not see them while speaking. So they are always there in our mind. So understanding hierarchy helps us understand why some sentence movements are possible and others are not. It also helps us understand sentence ambiguity. So remember this clearly, sentences have internal structure and constituent structure helps us study that structure. All right, now let's move on to the constituent test. So the question is, how do we know which words form a constituent? So to answer this, linguists use constituent tests. So constituent tests are simple methods used to check, whether a group of words is a unit in a sentence. This test, help us identify phrase boundaries. So there are main three, tests discussed in this unit. Like first one is substitution test, movement test, deletion test. So these tests are not mathematical rules. They are practical tools. If a group of words pass through these tests, we can say it is a constituent. So these tests are very important in syntax because they give us evidence. Syntax is not just like guesswork, right? It is based on observation and testing. So we will now look at each test one by one with simple examples. Please focus on on the concept or this idea, not on memorizing definitions. Once you understand this test, analyzing sentences will become much easier and more logical. So let's begin with uh, substitution test. So this is the first constituent test. So this test checks whether a group of words can be replaced by a single word, usually a pronoun. So let us look at a sentence. The small child kicked the ball. So the small child can be replaced by he. So the sentence becomes he kicked the ball. Right, the sentence is still grammatical. This shows that the small child is a constituent. Similarly, the ball can be replaced by it. So the small child kicked it, something like that. So again, the sentence is correct. So the ball is also a constituent. Okay, so if group of words can be replaced by one word without making sentence and grammatical, then the group is constituent. So this test helps us identify noun phrases and other phrases easily. So remember, substitution works on groups, not on random words. That is why it is a powerful test in syntax. So the next test is movement test. So this test checks whether a group of words can be moved to another position in a sentence. So let us take the same sentence. The small child kicked the ball. The ball can be moved to the front. The ball, the small child kicked. Something like that. So this sentence is acceptable in English, especially for emphasis. This shows that the ball is a constituent. However, if we try to move only one part of the phrases, the sentence becomes incorrect. This shows that only the full phrases can move as a unit. Movement test clearly shows that syntax works with phrases, not individual words. So this test is very useful in identifying for phrases and non-phrases. So if a group of words can move together, still make sense, it is a constituent. So next test is deletion test. This is the third test. This test checks whether a group of words can be removed from the sentence without making it, uh, yeah, this sentence actually checked, a group of words from the sentence without making uh, uh, whether a group of words from a sentence can be removed or not without making it what completely ungrammatical. Okay, like for example, from the sentence, the small child kicked the ball. What can be removed? If we remove the ball, we can the small child kicked. The sentence is still grammatical, right? Uh, though the meaning is less complete, this shows that the ball is a constituent. All right. So deletion does not mean uh, the sentences must sound perfect. It only means it only needs to remain grammatical. So by using substitution, movement, and deletion tests together, we can confidently identify you know test to constituents clearly. Right. To summarize this, constituent test, constituents are a group of words that function as units. Sentences are hierarchical. Constituent test help us identify phrase boundaries. So these ideas form the foundation of syntactic analysis. So another next, let's move on to the another next unit 12, morphemes and morphomics or morphophonemics. So what is this exactly in here in syntax? So this unit is very important because it shows how syntax interacts with morphology and phonology. So language does not work in separate compartments. Sounds, words, sentences influence each other. Okay. So first, let us recall what a morpheme is. A morpheme is the smallest unit of language that carries meaning or grammatical, information. For example, a dog is a morpheme, and when you put suffix is also a morpheme because it shows plural form, right? It works as a plural marker, like dog, dogs, something like that. So now we move to morphophonemics. Morphophonemics studies how the form of the morpheme changes depending on its grammatical environment. In simple words, it explains why the same morphemes sound different in different contexts. Let us look at some example. So when the word, uh, when the word dog, see dog, the word dog ends with voiced consonant, that is g. So it is, that's why it is pronounced as dogs instead of dogs, right? But when a word ends with a voiceless sound like the, it sounds as cats, right? So next is like wish, again, like hissing sound, sibilant sound. When a word ends with a sibilant sound, like hissing sound, something like that, uh, the word is pronounced as is, like say whiz, not whiz. All right. So in all these three cases, the plural morpheme is the same, but its pronunciation changes. Why does this happen? Because the sentence structure, and the sound environment decide which form, you know, which form appears. Right? They decide the structure and the sound environment. I mean, the sentence structure and the sound environment. So this is where syntax plays a role. Syntax decide the number, and tense or agreement, and morphophonemics decides how that grammatical information is realized in sound. So unit 12, shows us, that grammatical, grammar affects pronunciation. This understanding is very useful for linguistic students or learners of language, especially when analyzing actual, spoken English. All right. So now let's move on to the next, units. That is, word classes, noun phrases, and verb phrases. Right. So now, in morphology, what have we studied? In morphology, we studied words. In syntax, we studied phrase, what sentence, right? Like phrases, not individual words. And this is a very important shift. So, syntax is interested in how words group together to form phrases, right? These phrases then combine to form sentences. So when we analyze a sentence, we do not analyze one word with a time. We analyze what? Groups of words. These two important phrases types in English sentences are like noun phrases and verb phrases. Almost every English, sentences can be described using this simple formula. Sentence means noun phrase plus verb phrase, something like that. So, for example, in the sentence, the boy is reading a book. The boy is the noun phrase, and the rest is reading a book as well. Is the verb phrase. So, understanding, word classes in syntax helps us see how meaning is organized in sentences. So syntax, studies structure, not vocabulary. It focuses on how words function together. Once you understand noun phrases and verb phrases clearly, sentence analysis becomes so much easier. So these two phrases, form the backbone uh, of English sentence structure. Okay. Just a minute. So now let's move on to the next slide. Let's try to understand these phrases properly. So, noun phrase. So let us now understand the noun phrase. It is also called NP, right? A noun phrase is a phrase that is headed by what? A noun. So this means the most important word in the phrase is a noun. So a noun phrase may be short or it may be very, very long. Sometimes it has only one word like books. Sometimes it has many words like the tree, like the three very old house, something like that. Okay, so a noun phrase may include like a determiner. Determiner is like a and the, my. These are all determiner, right? An adjective or modifier, the noun, the main hat, right? The basic structure of a noun, phrases like determiner plus adjective plus noun, something like that. So examples are here. This is the structure. For example, a book, the old house, my three friends. So now noun phrases perform important function in sentence. They usually act as subject, of the sentence, object of the verb. For example, the boy is running. Here, it functions as a subject. Noun phrase functions as a subject. And she bought a new car. Here, noun phrase functions as a object, a new car, right? So understanding noun phrases, helps us understand who or what the sentence is about. Okay. So next we have verb phrase or VP. So a verb phrase is a phrase that is headed by a verb. Just like in a noun phrase, it is headed by a noun phrase is headed by noun, right? Here also, a verb phrase is a phrase that is headed by a verb. The verb is the most important part of this phrase, right? A verb phrase tells us what action is happening, what process is going on, or what state something is in. Right? A verb, a verb phrase may include, as you can see here, the main verb, right? The main verb, objects, complements, and adverbs. So examples of verb phrases include like sleeping, ate an apple, has been working hard. In the sentence, like the child is, let me, if you say, like, let's take an example. The child is sleeping. Is sleeping is the verb phrase. In the sentence, she ate an apple. Ate an apple is the verb phrase, and an apple is a verb. Sorry, noun phrase inside the verb phrase. You remember I have already said in the earlier in this lecture. So, what a noun phrase inside the verb, something like that. Okay, right? Just like that here. Eat an apple here. It is a verb. An apple is a noun phrase inside the verb phrase. Right? Eat an apple. So verb phrases are very important because they complete the meaning of the sentence. Without a verb phrase, a sentence is incomplete. So remember, noun phrase tells us who or what, and verb phrase tells us what happens. So together, noun phrase and verb phrase complete a sentence. Now we have in unit 14 other phrases types, other phrase types like what else? Adjectives phrase, adverb phrase, right? And preposition phrase, something like that. So now let's discuss them. So these are the other phrase types. What are they again? Adjective phrase, adverb phrase, and prepositional phrase, right? So an adjective phrase is headed by an adjective, right? Example include like very happy, extremely difficult, as you can see in the slide. On the slide, these phrases describe nouns, right? So an adverb phrase is headed by adverb. Examples like quite slowly or very carefully. This phrases describe who they describe verbs, adjectives, or adverbs itself. So a preposition begins with preposition and ends with noun phrase. An example including in the room, the table, right? So these phrases help us add detailed descriptions and clarity to sentence. So they make sentence richer and more informative. So before I move on to the next slides, I would like to quickly summarize all these phrases from noun phrase to prepositional phrases. So now, as you can see, syntax focuses on phrases, right, not individual words. So the main phrase types are in syntax and sentence structure or in sentence analysis. You can see noun phrase headed by a noun, verb phrase headed by a verb, adjective phrase headed by an adjective, adverb phrase headed by an adverb, prepositional phrase headed by a preposition. So each phrase has a head, which is the most important word in that phrase. So understanding these phrase types helps us break sentences into meaningful parts. This is the core skill in a syntactic analysis. So in the next part, let's move on to the functional and syntactic categories. So here, this is the unit 15, which deals with functional and syntactic categories. Until functional and syntactic categories. So until now, we discussed phrases like noun phrase, verb phrase, and so on, right? These phrases carry meaning. Functional categories are different. They mainly carry grammatical information or meaning. So functional categories help sentences become grammatically correct. They show things like definiteness, tense, and close relationship. So some important functional categories, sorry, uh, important, you know, functional categories in English are like determiner, like words like the, and, sorry, and, yeah, it is, and, this, my. These words have come from before noun, and they give, give grammatical information. So tense shows time, such as past tense, present tense, or future tense, something like that. So it is often shows auxiliary verbs like is, was, has. Okay. So complementizer, words like that, if, whether, these words introduces clauses. So for example, uh, in the sentence, I believe that he is honest. The word that does not add meaning by itself. It only introduces the clause, he is honest. So this is the role of a complement, right? So functional categories are very important in sentence because they connect, phrase and organize sentence structure. Without them, sentences would not be grammatically complete. Okay, so again, functional categories also help structure sentences at a deeper level. So they help us understand how phrases are uh, connected and how clauses are formed. So, for example, determiners help noun function properly in a sentence. We usually cannot say book is on table now. So we need determiners like the or a to make the sentence grammatical. So tense elements helps us place actions in time. Without tense, we cannot clearly say whether something happened in the past, present, or future. So complementizers help us join clauses. They allow us to build, complex sentences. For example, she said like that she will come. The word that connects two clauses. She said, and she will come, right? So how they connected? By that. Okay. So next, functional categories are especially important when we move to generative grammar, that is in block 4. Then we will study like the structure more to be using phrase structure rules. So even those functional categories do not carry strong meaning. They play a crucial role in grammar and sentence organizations. So understanding them, will make advanced syntax much easier later. Okay. So this is the end of block 3. So now let's move on to this assignment questions. So here you have 3 questions. In the first question, you try to explain, what constitution is and how sentences are, hierarchical. Okay, explain these things, right? Let me repeat it again. Try to explain in the first question. Try to explain. You begin with like what exactly a constitution is and how sentences are hierarchical. Okay, and you try to also provide some suitable examples. All right. So next question is. Uh, uh, in these questions, explain the structure of NP and VP, noun phrase and verb phrase, and show how they function in sentences. And in the third question, explain. Have already discussed in the last slide, right? Previous slide. like functional categories like determiners, like trends, complementizers. Explain them with examples from English. All right. So uh, when you write an answer, try to write it in simple language. Then I try to write a very long answer. Try to justify your answer properly. Okay. So now let's move on to the conclusion part. Conclusion and next step. What we shall do in the next class, right? So now in this lecture we have studied what you know what syntax is and how what it studies, and then how sentences are structured hierarchically, right? What constitution are, how to identify them. We also mentioned about if you want to mention here morphemes and morphophonemics, right? The interaction between syntax and morphology and phonology. And finally, we have discussed about different phrase types like noun phrase, verb phrase, adjective phrase, adverb phrase, and prepositional phrase. Okay, and then the functional and syntactic categories. So this block actually helped us understand how sentences are organized grammatically. And syntax shows that grammar is logical and systematic, and it's not like just random. Okay, so this lecture, now completes the Block-3 syntax. Okay, so in the next lecture we will begin with Block-4 phrase structure and generative grammar, which is a much more advanced but very interesting concept or field area to discuss with. Okay, so please before coming to next class, please go through the definition of phrase structure, generative grammar, what exactly it is, what does it what it deals with, So try to go through a bit so that you can understand better when I discuss about this. All right. So thank you so much. With this, we conclude today's lecture. So see you in the next session or lecture.